And we have Kim, who's joining us from Amsterdam, and Eva and I are here in Madrid. So it's truly the power of technology, the power of being together on the digital platforms, and the diversity that we can see, right? So we are anticipating a very, very rich conversation, a dynamic conversation. Feel free as you go along to just type in your questions as you hear, something that comes to your mind in the chat session. And what we hope to do is to pick them up as we go along, or maybe at the end of the conversation as well, right? So without any delay, let's just dive in straight into our conversations. And it's a very, very interesting topic on what are the new trends that are emerging. And maybe I can start with Kim, and would you like to elaborate a little bit about what are you seeing from your industry point of view on the new skills that are trending, skills that are lagging behind? And especially, I want to give a little bit of the context. Every year, if you look up the World Economic Forum's report, they come up with future of jobs, future of skills report. And some of the skills that have been trending massively are things like critical thinking, analytical thinking, influence, persuasion, decision-making, leadership. So with that kind of a background, I would want to open the floor for the conversation on, do you see those trends happening? Are there some other skills that you are seeing from your side? So Kim.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for having me on the panel today. It's truly an honor. Cisco's a leading technology company, and we've seen more than anyone the last year how the pandemic has actually accelerated digitization across the board. And one thing we know for sure is that the pandemic showed us that if it can be digital, then it must be digital. And so we're driving this with our customers and our partners. And obviously, reading the World Economic Forum report, and, if you look at the rise of AI and how we're seeing more automation and a lot of the work being taken away because we can do it more efficiently, we are seeing that there are skills that are needed. You named a lot of them, and they're mostly in the neighborhood of, in the area of how we can think, emotional intelligence, things that you can't automate. And that's going to be very important in the future, that as we start to bring efficiencies in the process and we make things even better for our customers, that having that emotional intelligence to be able to identify solutions and be able to ask questions and negotiate and influence is going to be more important than ever before.
Wow, fantastic. Let me pass on the baton to Dave. And what are your trends? And specifically also, is there something different happening in the Middle East?
So a couple of things, Kim. From my perspective, first thing is, we did a survey, Workforce of the Future survey, about a couple of years ago. I know it was before the pandemic. And one of the things that was really interesting is when we asked the question, what are the capabilities of the workforce of the future? The first topics that came up were around human skills. It was basically around trust in society. It was around well-being. And only in 5th or 6th place did we see some of the skills around, new digital technologies and so on. So completely agree with Kim that, this is about, it's about human skills, I think, first and foremost. There is, I think, a sense or a need, I would say, to demystify, obviously to digitize and upskill, but there's also, I think, a need to demystify some of the buzzwords that are out there. Everybody throws artificial intelligence around like there's no tomorrow, or machine learning, and oftentimes they don't have a clue what it means. We don't have a clue what it means. I studied artificial intelligence way back when I was studying engineering, but it's a field that has evolved so quickly that I think we need to sort of demystify really what that means. What I would say from my perspective in the Middle East is that we had to adapt very quickly. And one thing that was amazing during the early days of the pandemic is PwC has about 280,000 employees worldwide. And in about a week, we managed to move entirely into a digital and remote way of working, because thankfully we had invested in that in the past. We were not so sure, honestly, that our customers, our clients in the Middle East, especially because, it's a bit of an emerging market, that they would catch on. And we were just completely blown away by the fact that they caught on so quickly. And we managed to move to a digitized way of working with them in no time, really. And thankfully, consulting is a product that can be digitized, and that really enabled things and made things easier.
Yeah, okay. Just passing on to Sarah, I guess, because this is a perfect moment to bring Sarah in, especially because you're an innovator and we're talking about human skills, intangible skills. How do you, so what are the trends you are seeing? And also how do we capture these skills? How do we train for these skills?
Well, I think a lot of us in this audience have those skills innately within us. And, it is all about a trend for humanness. But I also believe it's about a trend for femaleness and female qualities and vision. And there is an amazing book, which I absolutely love, which was written by two guys, and it's called The Athena Doctrine. And the full title is How Women and the Men Who Think Like Them Will Rule the Future. And I would really encourage all of you to read this book. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And these are these human qualities and female qualities, which are so important. It's about vision. It's about intuition. It's about compassion. It's about empathy. It's really about changing the way we're doing business. And also for more inclusive leadership. Women naturally take everybody with them. They really do nurture the green shoots, and they want everyone to win. And I think that is what we're seeing. And that's, for me, what is so exciting about what's emerging right now.
Fantastic. Thank you. And let's go to David.
Yes, again, thank you for having me on this call as well. Well, I work in behavioral, in my is a behavioral business. So fundamentally, I am in people development in the financial industry, and we see two things. And I would cover what Dave and Kim already said. First of all, we work a lot with AE. That's one thing. So we have already, we were lucky to have also introduced things in the past which really were accepted only after the pandemic started. So people thought that was things we were inventing and delivering, which were fundamentally just something like an add-on. But people realized very, very quickly by the 19th of March, that was the day we sent the whole organization to work from home. And as Dave said, for example, we managed it, the day after, when we started on our computer, we were convinced nothing will happen. And guess what? We were right. Nothing happened for exactly 2 minutes, and then it started working, and it works since then. So it was very important to invest in these things. But I'm with Sarah as well. What we realize is these channels are a fundament, but still we need to show this empathy. We need to show this closeness to our clients. So it becomes even more an art than it was before. Before we were talking directly to people. Now we talk directly to people via a channel, and we need to make it right. And our clients are elder people, because I'm working in a Swiss bank, so our clients generally are elder people. So we need to train our people to be able to train our customers in using these channels properly. That's a very interesting thing.
Very, very interesting. And I'm going to come back to it because I'm already seeing two separate but intertwined skill sets. One is around the AI and technology and digitization, and the other is around these human skills and empathy and compassion and intuition, right? So I'll come back to it, but before that, I want to bring in Eva into our conversation. So Eva, you are also, you've been in the industry, but you're now at this moment from the education side, and I want to actually bring you into conversation specifically with what is it that you are seeing in terms of recruiters wanting to look for these skills in the students and the candidates that they want to hire, things that you're observing that's happening different now.
Yeah. So, now recruiters are asking for Superman, Superwoman, right? Because of course they are asking for technical skills with the new digitalization that we are seeing, but at the same time with the soft skills, right? So they are looking for both type of skills. Today we had a call with LinkedIn, and what they were telling us is that sometimes they hire for technical and they develop the leadership skills internally. So let's see if this is really a trend or not. The other thing that they are looking for is, of course, diversity and specialization. So for more senior roles, they are looking for some candidates that they bring very similar expertise. At the same time, what we are seeing in the market now with the COVID is that the whole pandemic has done is that now the whole process is digital, right? And they're using technology to filter curriculums. And at the same time, they're going to a richer, larger number of schools, right? So they are really increasing the reach. So they really can cherry pick the right candidates. So what we are trying to help students is how to succeed in this digital world of doing interviews in front of a computer, but also how to be found through the machines, data machines that they select CVs, right? So again, it's very important for our students to really make sure that the CV goes through a person first, right? And this is the whole referral process that we are trying to do with the students.
Wow, there is also a whole debate around whether AI should be used in recruitment and in screening candidates, but we'll park that conversation for a bit for now, because I want to get to our point about digital transformation and upskilling, right? So what we've heard so far, yes, there is a lot of, and because of the COVID, companies had to switch very actively. And the joke or the saying goes that companies that did not have the chance to automate or digitize in the last 20 years actually had to do that in 2020, right? So, and companies did it successfully. So I also want to bring in your experiences and ideas on how exactly have you done the upskilling of employees, and especially like what David was mentioning, maybe older generations that are not that savvy with digitization. As Dave was saying, what is AI? We really don't ourselves know what is AI. So how exactly, what's happening behind the scenes in terms of the upskilling on the digitization front? So maybe Dave, you want to go first, and then we come to David?
Oh, I will do, sure. And I will try to cut down to the chase here quickly. We've invested about $1 billion globally in upskilling. And what I can tell you in the region, we're actually sending people 6 weeks out of the market, okay, investing in digital upskilling. We call it digital accelerator programs. They're mostly focused on data analytics and basically predictive analytics, using a whole bunch of different tools like Alteryx, for instance. And what is very interesting, I'm using also tools like Tableau, for instance, or Power BI as a way of displaying that data, right? And what's really interesting about some of these tools is that within them, it hides the true power of algorithms, the true power of machine learning and adaptive algorithms, without necessarily having to code in Python or what have you. And that, I think, is a very powerful idea, because I think the key skill here, people shouldn't be scared that now all of a sudden all of us need to become programmers. No, it's not about that. I think it's about understanding what the algorithms behind it and putting them into practice using a whole host of different tools. There are so many different tools out there. Scratch is another example. It's a programming language that doesn't have any code. It just has images that you move around the screen, and it's all based basically on programming logic as opposed to a programming language. So we're teaching a lot of that. And then the other point that I would make is around the other skills, the people skills, the leadership skills and other things. Those we teach by, it's about an apprenticeship model, right? I mean, I think that's one advantage of being a consultancy, that a lot of the skills are taught on the job by basically applying them. So let me maybe leave it at that, and I let others chip in as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to invite David, and specifically to also your experiences, but specifically to the point of how do you deal with upskilling the older generations?
I mean, our advantage as a bank fundamentally in Switzerland is really that we had to go through very difficult times the last 10 years. So we had to become stronger. And I think the great advantage we had is that we had the power and we had the assets to do so. So we had to change a lot of things. First thing we did was to change culture. Culture came from, the Swiss bank, very closed, rather, secret and so on, to something which is in an international market without protection of banking secrecy, with much more competition, these things. So automatically you have another type of people being in here. It's another culture. It's born from below, and it's fostered from above. So you have other people in there. Strategy and culture changed. What we do now is fundamentally, since 5 years, I could say, we're introducing continuously more efficient digital tools, platforms, and so on. And people have now got, I say, used to the fact that they have to adapt continuously. There is nothing which stays the same. Dave said exactly that. We train them once from in my shop, sending them to training, but then on the job, of course, having to use all these tools continuously. So it's a sort of, a give and take. It's a ping pong continuously, and people have adapted quite fast to that. So I must say they're strong at that. Our aim is to help our people now use these instruments in a positive way, and here I quote Sarah again, in an empathic way with our clients. Because we could hide behind our beautiful Zoom calls, but we need to use them properly to work with our people.
Exactly. So before I move on and pass on the baton to another panelist, I want to take a moment and also share what's happening in the education industry, right? So with the technology, the revolution, the digitization that we have seen is pretty much at the same pace or even faster, right? So the number of tools that have gone and the way quickly everyone has adapted, and especially within IE, we've seen that happen. The amount of training that has gone in to keep these hybrid conversations where people, we have classrooms where people are, half the people are in the class, but half the people are on Zoom. It has required massive investments of technology, massive upskilling, and there's a different skill set that's needed, right? So just to be able to engage the two sides at the same time, digital, virtual, and face-to-face. So I totally understand that. And I want to bring in Kim at this point and also add a little bit of the point that Dave was mentioning. We have all these tools and we are training people on these tools. So apart from the thoughts that you had, Kim, do you also have any ideas on, are we overdoing the tools? Are people getting lost with the tools, with the Microsoft Office and Google Teams and so many things that happen at the same time? What do you feel about that as well?
So it's been an interesting past year, because you can, when I was introduced, I don't know if everyone caught on to what my title is. I run the virtual sales team in EMEAR. So before the pandemic, we did everything virtually. So we used our technology, our collaboration tools, WebEx, to sell to our customers and talk to them on a daily basis. And we have a pretty comprehensive digital stack that we use to be able to understand and contact our customers and sell them solutions as quickly as possible, and be able to talk to them about what they're interested in. I think that it's interesting because now that we're working from home and we're working remotely, we're entering everybody's house, and it's changed everything. So you're in people's bedrooms, you're in people's living rooms. I've even had calls with people that they've sat in the bathroom because they had a roommate and it was the only room that had a door. And so this changes the dynamic. And it also changes how you need to talk to people. So the answer to your question, are there too many tools? No. I think that the tools aid if you can introduce it in a way to your employees and they can leverage it to be successful, it's not. Now, I wanted to also just quickly talk about something about upskilling the employees. One of the things that we do at Cisco, and I'm actually responsible for, is our graduate program. So we bring in graduates every year for our CSAP program. It's world renowned. We recruit from the top schools across EMEA, and it's been this is the first year we've done the program virtually. Usually they come to Amsterdam or in the UK and in France. And if you look at the Gen Zs, they're all digital natives. So the change to working remotely has been easy for them in terms of working with these tools. But the difference has been is not being able to have the personal contact with each other in the office. This has been, I think, the biggest challenge in terms of the future of work. So we talk about the skills, but we also need to talk about the culture and the importance of making sure that you keep people connected and they stay motivated during these times. That's a very important part as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've brought in a very, very interesting and a very important crucial point.
I
right?
see Sarah smiling.
Yes, Chrissy, I was just going to emphasize that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a terrible statistic by Young Minds, which is an organization in the UK, which says that 80% of youth think their mental health has been affected by the pandemic. And,
Yes.
I have to say that, there are some important things to remember. Whether we like it or not, a lot of AI, a lot of tech is developed by men for men. There are not enough women and girls. As part of one of my roles as global purpose and sustainability advisor to Marie Claire, we're doing a lot of work around the future of work for women, and we've been working with people like CogX and MIT really looking at this. There's a huge skill gap. Women are not choosing to go into these careers. We're having tech built that's not built for us. And also, the people who have really suffered during this time have been women who have been juggling children, work, cleaning, dogs, everything else, shopping, and trying to hold down a job. And young people, because, to the example that Kim gave, it's all very nice if we've got a lovely place to live, but if you're a youngster and you're in a flat share, and the internet's patchy and you've got like a tiny, space of your own, how the hell are you actually going to be successful in your job and your career? I mean, that's incredibly hard. And I think, this time has suited some very, very well, but a lot of people have been really left behind. And I think that's what we need to address is the left out and the left behind during this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's a very nice segue to the next bit that we really want to talk about, which is, in fact, yes, almost everybody has suffered during pandemic, right? So the last 1 year, men, women, young, old, everybody, right? But there are statistics that are showing that maybe some groups, like maybe women, have been disproportionately much more affected by it. But at the same time, I also feel personally that men have actually been able to empathize more with what situations women actually have to go through, just because they have worked from home. They have realized how difficult mental health issues can be and how difficult it is to just manage work-life balance, your mental balance, right? So a couple of questions. First question is, what is it that your organizations are doing to make the place more inclusive, to make sure that these groups are not left out, and especially women who perhaps maybe are leaving the workforce for good, just because they either have to start taking care of childcare and things like that. So what is it that initiatives that you have been thinking about, have already launched in your organizations? And maybe I can invite Kim.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So we do quite a bit. And I think, I talked about this before we started the session, that Cisco's branding is about powering an inclusive future for all. So the company culture is very much about making sure that everyone feels, especially now that we're all working from home, that everyone feels comfortable. So it is very normal to see dogs, cats, children, parents, you name it, come into the screen, and people just keep on with their calls. Like it's and we include them sometimes in those meetings. So I think as a leader, you need to make sure that you're okay with that and you don't make an issue out of it. And it's also important to not judge people on the time that they start and the time they finish, but the result of the job that they're doing, especially now. And working from home, I think people work even more than they would when they were going to the office. I think that there's been statistics that show that. But next to that at Cisco, we have employee resource organizations and networks. We have one in particular called Back to Business, which focuses on people who have taken a step back and re-enter the workforce. We help them, we retrain them. This is great for women that might have been out of the business for a while. We bring them in. We do a lot of mentoring. We do reverse mentoring. And we just make sure that that there are a lot of rituals that are happening, what I spoke about in terms of it is absolutely okay to have your cat jump on the table or your 3-year-old to come in or your 5-year-old or whatever to ask questions about homework. And if everyone accepts that, then it's the norm and people feel comfortable about it and they don't feel like they have to quit their job or that they're not contributing.
Yeah, and I also want to bring in Eva at this point in terms of also the mental health, right? So the idea that mental health has become an issue for everybody. And you see that the level of anxiety also in the students, in people who are looking for jobs is super, super high, right? So from an educational institution point of view, what is it that we need to do differently to be able to train some of these skills, which are going to be addressing directly the mental health challenge? Eva, do you have any experiences?
Yeah, let me share what we are doing in IE. Of course, we have resources that are available for students, to call in and have, talks with psychologists. We also have academic advisors in the undergrads that they, depending on the grade, on the year, is at the group level of 1-to-1, so that they are following up individually with the students to see, if any of our students are at risk, and we have found some cases. I think that more things to do. We have a very active community with clubs, and they organize things like this all the time, just to foster the interaction and not to lose the sense of the community, right? This is very important, and it's not easy to do this online, right? So this, again, new things that we need to learn. I can also share at my department what we've been doing, apart from the 1-to-1 calls, the group calls, right, that are very important. In the pandemic, very soon after we were confined, we established a 1-hour call every week, and it was new for the team, and it was really important to make sure that at least once per week we have this connection. But for example, I can share what we did at Christmas, right? We normally have one day that we go for lunch, and we were thinking, and I just had the idea of having a virtual Christmas lunch, right? So we delivered the menu with the food, and we organized the whole event on Zoom with it was a video competition that we have some people managing the whole event, and people, felt that it was a great event. So I think that is an opportunity for all of us to be creative, to not to lose the contact with our teams. And I think also the opportunity, we've talked about, it was great doing this event of people all over the world. And I think that sometimes in companies, we're very used to interact at the local level. And there were physical meetings to interact at the international level. But I think that now, in terms of knowledge sharing and meeting people outside your your country, your department are huge, right? So let's take this opportunity to do more networking and also mentoring. I think another very important thing that we do at IE, and it's very important in companies, is when you put a mentor, a senior person, and maybe before it was, we were doing it physically or over the phone. Now it's so easy to do it by video. And I think that this type of things is opportunities to think creatively.
Thank you for sharing those ideas and initiatives. I think so Kim talked about the importance of culture and connection, right? And Sarah, you've talked about already the importance of skills like empathy and compassion and trust, right? And given we already said that mental health issues are on the rise and are actually becoming kind of a pandemic in itself, and that hybrid work, digital work is not going away anytime soon. What is it that companies need to do? What is it that you are doing? What more needs to be done in terms of addressing this challenge of trying to build connection, trying to build new integrated culture in this kind of hybrid environment where people might have never seen each other, might have never talked to the colleagues on side talks when they're getting their coffees? What initiatives need to be put in place for that?
I think that's a really good question. And what I do welcome about the pandemic is we are showing up in our whole lives. I mean, like everyone's getting, the whole life. And I love that because, previously when you worked with somebody, you maybe knew that they had kids, but you've never met the kids. Now you're meeting the kids, the husband, the dog, whatever the situation is. And that's really important because when you work with colleagues, I feel you're not often aware that that's all the responsibility they have. I think that is a great upside about it. And I mean, certainly the companies that I'm working at, Marie Claire, we have check-ins with each other, before we start any meeting. We really honestly kind of tune in and literally do how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? And if you say, I feel like a 1, that's okay. And the team will step in and kind of support you and be there for you. Not everyone's going to be like a 10 every single day. It's just not unrealistic. And I think that kind of level of honesty is really important. I mean, companies like Unilever that I worked for many years, they actually have mental health training for their managers. They actually take courses to really, and you get a certificate, and it's a really detailed and amazing training. And these really kind of in-depth, kind of going way beyond the kind of, business interrelations to really understand how the team dynamic works, what excites people, what motivates them, and conversely, what doesn't help them. And then you're also seeing, a lot of companies signing up to things like Headspace, to Calm, to really looking at technology and how even when you are in confined spaces or, have the dog, children screaming, you can retreat into your own private kind of space. And I think that's super important. And I think what is very exciting as well is a lot of companies are looking at, childcare and how they can support women better, quite frankly, because it's not been great. And and the fact is, even before the pandemic, a lot of women were leaving the workforce or compromising their careers, particularly when they had the second child, because in many countries, when they reached the second child, it made no financial sense to kind of carry on working and pay for the childcare. And I think we're really kind of, by seeing people's whole lives, there are new initiatives about, people really helping with childcare, people opening schools. I mean, I was lucky enough to work for the Body Shop, they have an amazing school, people from the local villages and towns all want to be at the school because it's amazing, but Body Shop employees, get there first. And I think those are the kind of initiatives about how can we really help people in their lives better, and how can we really look at their whole situation or whole person and support them in their entirety, and not just in the kind of professional bit, of the iceberg that we see.
And anybody else would like to pitch in from the panel?
I wanted to follow up on Sarah's point. Sarah, I completely agree with you. Look, I think if anything, this pandemic has completely made us all human. I think one of you guys earlier mentioned that we've realized that we all have families. I, for one, appreciate what my wife does all the time, right? I mean, we have 4 kids, and for about 5 months, we were basically locked up, and I really learned to appreciate what it takes to, take care of the full family. And, there was a benefit, I think, to not traveling. It was great, but there's also the other side, right? No, but what I wanted to say was around, women have been hit so hard, much harder than average through this pandemic, right? I mean, it was already a challenge before the pandemic. Let's be honest, right? It has become an even bigger challenge now. So what are we going to do that's different? I wanted to maybe mention 3 countries that I think in one recent survey that the OECD mentioned around women in work and women empowerment. They talked about Iceland, Sweden, and New Zealand as 3 countries to imitate. So I want to leave maybe the audience with that thought. They obviously do devote a lot more aid and help to women than pretty much any other country around the world. And just to give you a sense, if those were the 3 top countries, the UK is number 16, the US number 26, Spain number 28. So there's a lot that we need to do to kind of bridge that gap. And I don't think that's going to happen by osmosis. It's not going to happen by inertia. We need to have the political will, and I really mean political here, and business will, because I don't think that this will happen without a tight partnership between business and government.